I've been home for almost a week and I've been putting off making this video. At first, I told myself it was because I wanted an extra week to do the week 5 reading for The Artist's Way. And I did. I did want an extra week for that because I didn't really do much besides my morning pages when I was gone. But that doesn't really excuse just how much I've been avoiding making this video. I don't know if it's just because I've been out of practice, although I have been out of practice, but I feel like there's a lot to admit to when I'm struggling, and I don't want to admit to the struggle that I've been having. And it doesn't feel like a particularly romantic struggle, for lack of a better word. It doesn't feel like that kind of like, I am an artist and I am suffering for the work kind of struggle. It feels like I'm more struggling with ADHD. I'm struggling with getting bored of what I'm doing. I'm struggling with getting back up into the habit of something. My name is Rochelle. This is The Artist's Way. I have been working on doing my weekly reflections on YouTube in public. So if you're going through it yourself, you can have some camaraderie. If you're thinking about it, you can see what lies ahead. Week 5 was about recovering a sense of possibility, thinking about what is possible. And it was such an interesting thing to read when I was already doing so much that like 22-year-old me couldn't imagine traveling by myself for a week to visit an online friend back when, as a teenager, I had parents who thought that having a group chat was the same as a chat room and wouldn't let me talk to my in-person friends online. Anyway, I got to go visit an online friend for a week. I started in a new job 2 days ago, and there's this sense of possibility within that. Let's go ahead and finally start this reflection. The first question is always, how many days did you do your morning pages? And I spent 2 weeks in this in week 5 because I was gone for so much of it. I missed my first day of flying, and then I missed a day that I had to get up really early, and I didn't have time to myself. But over the past 2 weeks, I've only missed 2 days while I was traveling, which I find not bad. It asks if you're starting to like them at all, but I always have. Finally, this week, I feel like I'm starting to get past just rambly journal entries about what's on my mind and making a to-do list and really starting to dissect my art, trying to get into some of what's going through my head in terms of why I'm stuck, where I've been, some of the things that happened to me in the past that are keeping me from doing good art right now. Well, I do find it a little bit less true. I want to point out here that it says that oftentimes people will find that at about a page and a half, something real starts to come out. Maybe it's because I'm writing on something smaller than like proper college rule spiral notebook paper, but it tends to happen closer to about 2 pages for me. There were a couple of times when I was gone that I actually wrote 4 pages or 4.5 pages before stopping because I was coming to terms with things that I really needed to get onto paper. I have been trying to listen to that with my new job. I wanted to be sure that I still had time on the days that I commute to do my morning pages. And so I set my alarm 20 minutes earlier. And 2 days in, I'm still keeping to that. So we'll see how that continues. But I started work this week, but my morning pages, as I'm getting into this job that's a technical editing job, very dry. It's work that I enjoy. It's work that I think I'm good at, but it is very dry and not very creative. And my morning pages, the last 2 days in particular, have been hashing out issues with my musical, with the music that I've been stuck on, which I'll get into when I finally make a 12-week year video. I'm definitely putting that one off. The one thing I've really been struggling with is artist states, and I've been struggling for 2 reasons. The first is that I've been struggling to have enough time with kids' activities, with being gone. When I'm visiting my friend, I don't want to spend any time by myself. Oddly, it negates what Julia Cameron calls an artist state, but I did a lot of things with her that would count if I had done them alone. We went to a musical that was not by somebody particularly famous, who spent 10 years with this in development before finally getting relatively famous actors into it. We went to the final Toronto showing of Come From Away and got to experience that. We did some random driving just to see the sights and look at cherry blossoms and such. All these things that would count as an artist state, except I wasn't alone. And then at home, like I do spend a little bit of time by myself. I'll cross stitch and I will build things in Dreamlight Valley, and occasionally I'll sit and play piano. But those have always been part of my life. I'm not moving into a new thing or returning to childhood. It's something that I've never let go of. And because it's something I've never let go of, it doesn't really feel like an artist state. It feels like I'm cheating somehow if I'm just sitting and cross stitching while listening to an audiobook, which I have done a lot recently. One of the things it's asking is for me to take a date that feels really adventurous. But really, nothing's more adventurous, I feel like, than flying across the country alone to go visit someone you only get to see a few times a year. Although I guess I could count my airline travel as an artist state, even though what I did was let myself watch just bad reality TV. I didn't actually make myself work at all, not on my musical, not on work, not on anything during flights, which I often do. I didn't journal, nothing. And I let myself just exist, however I felt like, guilt free. And that was kind of nice. Flying is one of my favorite ways to spend time by myself, and I do think I'm slowly getting back into some creativity that I felt like I was disconnected from. So I did have an artist state. In terms of synchronicity, which is the next question, I feel like still my biggest thing is just that I feel like in some ways I manifested the job that I just started. Where when I started the Artist's Way, I had just heard of this opportunity and I felt like it would be a good use of my skills. And I was thinking of it in this mindset of if I can get a steady paycheck, then maybe I can fund my art in some way, be a producer or something to get my art out into the world, buy the equipment that I need to record songs, pay someone to help me produce, whatever it is. And now I'm starting it 6 weeks later. I know it's taken forever, but it happened. And that feels really synchronous, for lack of a better way to put it. And I finally got to release some music. I'm going to go ahead and cut here. Getting to release that into the world means the world to me. Please go buy this book. It's incredible. I am so proud of her. I am not required to say this, but I'm going to be insufferable about this book for the next 7 months at least. Sorry. So, this wasn't my biggest week of synchronicity, but I have felt like it was a really important week in morning pages with getting answers. I have been stuck for like, I want to say even a week before I left on vacation. I was stuck on a song that I was trying to notate, and it wasn't feeling right. And it was morning pages that finally inspired me to go look into the whole scene and come to terms with the fact that I didn't feel like the character singing was being true to herself. I wasn't getting the point across. And then realizing that I was writing this really earnest, sappy, violin-y sounding song. At least that's how I heard it in my head. And it was feeling, it's not melodramatic if it's happy. One note though, there was no subtext, nothing going on, and I realized I needed to make the cynicism that this character felt toward a life of fame, the fact that she envied crowds because they could become nothing without it feeling like a bad thing. And I need to put that into the music. I haven't actually succeeded in putting it into the music yet, but the framework itself, I found myself avoiding this project, not wanting to open it, hating everything I did, not liking how it sounded. And just since I made that discovery and I changed up some of the lyrics and I changed up the dialogue around it enough, the character feels a little bit more true to herself. And I feel like I understand that I need to figure out what cynicism sounds like, what it means to underlie something with some combination of jealousy and frustration and cynicism toward fame and famous people and envy toward the crowd rather than the fame. Anyway, I need to figure out what that sounds like. But now I feel like I'm in the right direction and I know what the goalpost is. Yeah, that's where I'm at with The Artist's Way. I am about halfway through week 6 right now. I will probably, if I have the energy and the motivation and I'm not scared, I'll do my update for that on Friday, get back to my regular schedule. This week, interestingly, as I start work, part of the reason I was okay with letting week 5 go on for 2 weeks was because week 6 is about discovering a sense of abundance and doing that the week that I start my first salaried job ever and my first real 40-hour a week W-2 job in 10 years felt like the perfect time to be thinking about this idea of abundance and this idea of a creative God who provides that abundance for the sake of creativity and a creative abundance on top of a financial one. So I'm really enjoying this week. I will have an update for you soon on that. If you're doing the Artist's Way too, let me know how it's going in the comments. If you want to follow along on this journey, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. And I check in with the Artist's Way and with the 12-week year every week when I'm not on vacation or avoiding facing my own thoughts to a camera. That's not particularly helpful. That's all right. I will see you all soon.